And we are back continuing this edition of shows for In My Own Words, the podcast, Touchdown, Alabama Magazine. Stephen Smith coming to you live in studios here. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the middle of award season. So much going on here on the campus of the University of Alabama. When you talk about Nick Saban, who is up for the Paul Bear Bryant Coach of the Year Award and the Bobby Dodd Coach of the Year Award trophy. If you look at Alabama's defense, defensive lineman Quinnen Williams, safety Deontay Thompson, both candidates for the Chuck Benderrick Award that goes to college football's Defensive Player of the Year. Linebackers Dylan Moses and Lindale Mack Wilson both up for the Dick Butkus Award. Going over to the offensive side, we have quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, a candidate for semifinalist for both the Manning Award and the Davio Bryan Award, both geared toward quarterback play. Wide receiver Jerry Jeudy, a semifinalist for the Fred Biletnikoff Award. And offensive coordinator Mike Locksley, who has done an unbelievable job calling plays, is up for the Broyles Award, which goes to college football's top assistant coach. So with all these things going on, be sure to vote for your favorite Crimson Tide staff member or your favorite Crimson Tide player or the Crimson Tide coach Nick Saban in terms of all things going on for this award season. But first segment, got a chance to look at the toughness of Tagovailoa in the matchup against LSU. This time, I want to give praise to the Alabama offensive line and position coach Brent Key in the second segment. And Brent Key is somebody of whom I challenged last week. He's got to earn that paycheck, an individual that has spent 3 years now at the University of Alabama, coming over from Central Florida and George O'Leary's staff. And I mentioned before, just because you may be a good coach, and Brent Key is a good coach, not taking shots at him, has done a fine job. He knows what he's doing. Just because you are a good coach doesn't necessarily mean you are the fit for Alabama. Doesn't necessarily mean you are the perfect fit for Nick Saban. When I look at Brent Key, there have been moments in his 3 years to where the offensive line has looked good. They've went out there, they have run blocked well, they have pass protected well, they have brought the nasty, they have done their job setting that physical tone for the offense and the physical tone for the entire team. And then there are moments where the offensive line gets manhandled up front. It cannot get a push on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. They're stuffed up front. The running backs can't find the holes. The pass protection isn't quite there. And you look at Brent Key as if to say, son, what are you doing? It's been a lot of inconsistency there. So the challenge I presented to him for the LSU game was he's got to earn that paycheck. And against LSU, my goodness, for the first time as I'm in Tiger Stadium, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Death Valley, I was able to look at Coach Key and say, son, welcome home. You did it. You actually fit here. For the first time, I could actually look at Brent Key and say, son, you fit the Nick Saban staff. Just going back to how this offensive line performed against the Tigers, 576 yards of offense blocked for, 281 of those yards coming via the rushing attack, which is the most LSU has allowed against a Nick Saban coached Alabama team. That offensive line getting the job done in the run game. Tua Tagovailoa, a career-long 44-yard rushing touchdown to which he outran the entire LSU defense, including linebacker Devin White. Was he even needed for this game? More than likely not, but had to pacify the LSU fans and the coaching staff by letting them play in the second half. But Tua, big-time run there. Big kudos to the offensive line in that regard. The front guys also aiding Tagovailoa to 295 yards passing, 49 yards rushing, which in total we're looking at 344 yards accounted for Tua. Tua also 3 total touchdowns. Damian Harris, thanks to the offensive line, his second 100-yard rushing performance of the season, 19 carries for $107, had 1 touchdown. His 9th career 100-yard performance for the Crimson Tide as he inches so closer to being the first back in Tide history to have 3 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. Damian Harris right now, 87 carries for 542 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. As we look at Najee Harris, his performance, 6 carries for 83 yards, averaged a whopping 13.6 yards a pop, even ran over Devin White. I mean, poor Devin White. Shouldn't have even played in this game because even when he was in, you didn't recognize him being out there because he was either being ran over by Damian Harris, ran over by Najee Harris, or being ran by Tua Tagovailoa. So, offensive line really did an outstanding job this week against the LSU Tigers. And the last 2 weeks, it's really come alive. Against Tennessee, the run game was in full effect. Tua had all day to throw the football as he had a 300-yard passing day. You come back against the LSU, and despite the fact that Tua doesn't have over 300 passing yards, offensive line still giving this man all day to throw the football and setting up the ground and pound. Only 1 sack allowed by the Tide against the Tigers. Alabama only 5 sacks given up all season, which is the fewest by a team in the Southeastern Conference. Brent Key really getting these guys to play at a high level from offensive tackle to offensive tackle. Jonah Williams, Cedric Wills have brought the beef on the outside. Jonah Williams, we already know what he is capable of. If you look at the analytics of Pro Football Focus, one of the best, if not the best, offensive tackles in college football on the left side. Cedric Wills on the right side, the sophomore, growing game by game, getting better at shielding at the point of attack, showing the footwork. He talked about in his recruitment that he wants to play tackle. He's starting to show that he is an elite tackle at this level. And the guard play has stepped up. Deontay Brown has completely big boy snatched left guard away from Lester Cotton. Cornbread has been fantastic. He's come in, he's solidified that left side, putting his hands on guys, driving them off the football, opening up the rush attack, and giving Tua time to throw in the pocket. So, offensive line's played well. And in years past where this group has struggled, you have wondered, do they really deserve to win the Joe Moore Award, which is presented to the best offensive unit in college football? And I get it. It's Alabama. This fan base treats these players as if they're their own children. And when you look at it's Alabama, it's the Crimson Tide offensive line, surely they deserve to win the Joe Moore Award. But when you look at how they've performed in recent seasons where they have not been up to task, they have not been on their P's and Q's, they have not set the tone, they have not set the edge, they look really inconsistent. You wonder, do they really deserve the Joe Moore Award? Versus this year, and especially in the last 2 weeks, this group has played like a group that has deserved the notoriety to win this particular honor. I look at going back to the offensive tackles here, Jonah Williams, SEC Lineman of the Week for the way he's played. Cedric Wills really stepping up there. And after facing an LSU team that really didn't have the freaks on defense, let's be honest here, LSU's freaks were in the secondary this year with Greedy Williams, John Battle, and Grant Delpit, though Williams and Delpit both got exposed last week, and John Battle got injured in the first play of the game. LSU just did not have the studs it usually has each year on the defensive front. I mean, in recent years, we're talking about Ricky Jean-Francois, Glenn Dorsey, Arden Key, Sam Montgomery, Barkevius Mingo, Raheem Alim, just freak athletes on the defensive line. That was not the case this year for LSU. Versus Mississippi State, the team the Crimson Tide will host this week for the first time in a month. Alabama's having a home game at Bryan Stadium. You got Mississippi State, and this is a group that it's got some physical freaks on the defensive line. Montez Sweat, Kobe Jones, Jeffrey Simmons, these guys are nothing to sneeze at. Montez Sweat in general leading the team, 9.5 sacks, 12 tackles for loss. He ties Quentin Williams, who also has 12 tackles for loss this season. Jeffrey Simmons, 9.5 tackles for loss, has not registered a sack this season, but does have 5 quarterback hurries. Going back to Sweat, he leads the team with 7 quarterback hurries. And then Kobe Jones, 5 tackles for loss. So Mississippi State's got some guys up front that can get after the quarterback, that can stuff the run, that can impose their will on an opposing offensive line. So for Alabama, this week may truly be the toughest test in neutralizing the defensive front because of all the athletes the Bulldogs have on that side of the football. Mississippi State giving up 12.3 points per game this season, allowing just 278.7 yards offensively to the competition. So Brent Key earning the paycheck the last 2 weeks. Can he continue to do it this week in that progression? I remember talking to center Ross Pierschbaker back in the summer at SEC Media Days, and he talked about how, Coach Key identifies with us now. He understands what he wants from us. We understand what we want from him. We can connect the dots with Coach Key. That's what Ross Pierschbaker shared with me. We can connect the dots with Coach Key. We are now starting to identify with him. He is now starting to identify with us. Well, I have seen that in the last 2 weeks. Can that continue? Will be the big question, but kudos to him. He did show against LSU. He has earned that paycheck. With the offensive line, kudos to them. Crimson Tide now 9-0 on the season. Number 1 in the college football playoff as it looks to provide a solid showing the last 3 games of the regular season at home, friendly confines of Bryan Stadium. Taking our final break here on In My Own Words. When we get back, I wanted this discussion to be about Quentin Williams. I really did. And how he has solidified himself in going from an underrated contributor to a top 5 pick potentially. But with all the whining, griping, complaining about, oh, Alabama's ruined college football. Oh, the games are not fun anymore. Oh, they're not entertaining anymore. Shut up. I'm going to get into why. The 3 reasons why Alabama is great for college football, and the rest of national media and opposition just needs to roll with it, keep it going, because the empire isn't going anywhere no time soon. Keep it locked right here, folks. It's In My Own Words, and we'll be right back.